Hi there. My name is Abby, and I teach yoga for normal people. One of the things that I've found that I continually struggle with throughout my yoga practice, throughout teaching, is bringing an element of mindfulness into both my practice and my life. I think everybody struggles with this. I remember the first time I was introduced to mindfulness, I was in about 8th grade, and an English teacher decided that he was going to teach his entire class about mindfulness by having us all sit around the perimeter of the room and stare at the wall. Since that was my first experience with mindfulness, it's not exactly the most comfortable thing that I've had to practice and work with. It was a little traumatizing in some ways. So, what I'd like to do for you today is offer you a short little mindfulness practice that works for me and may help you feel just a little bit more connected. So, I want to start by telling you a story. And it's a story about all of us as humans. We are all innately storytellers. We tell stories so that we can make sense of the universe and the world around us. And as we tell those stories become part of our narrative, part of our lives, part of our bodies in a lot of ways. And mindfulness and the practice that we're going to do today is going to work with those stories that we tell ourselves and try to sort of slowly peel back the layers of those stories. So we've grown up being told that we have to identify how we feel. We're happy, we're not happy, we're angry, we're sad, we're in pain. Whatever that experience of us in our flesh and blood, in our bodies is, we've been asked to identify those things. Well, in my practice and in my perspective, a lot of those things are just stories that we tell ourselves and others about kind of a shorthand way to give people the status update of where we are. And one of the things that I want to let you in on is that mindfulness may sound incredibly intimidating. It may be really anxiety inducing, thinking that you have to sit still or feel locked down or feel like you can't move or scratch or wiggle or whatever. But the thing about mindfulness is it can come into your life in ways that are very small and actually very active. Mindfulness can manifest in a lot of ways in our everyday lives. And that can be everything from a breeze through a window that brushes our skin and centers us and grounds us in that moment. It can be the feel of the soles of your feet against the floor as you wash dishes. Mindfulness doesn't have to be this formal, sitting down, moving practice. But on occasion, it helps to just kind of settle, take stock, and get connected back to ourselves and strip away some of the layers of those stories that we like to tell ourselves and that we like to tell others about where we are in this world. Now, there's nothing wrong with the stories we tell ourselves. They're the things that help us make sense of the world. They keep us safe. They tell us whether we are in danger or not. And they can be incredibly valuable. But for the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, I'd like you just to take a moment and think about setting those stories aside. Just taking a few breaths, doing a few simple movements right here on your mat or in your bed or on the floor or wherever you have space, even in a chair, just to reconnect and peel back the layers of those stories. Welcome to Mindfulness for Normal People. As we begin, I'd like you to just find a way to be comfortable. It can be seated, it can be sitting on a meditation cushion, it can be lying down on your back. Whatever shape or form meets you where you are in this moment is perfect for a mindfulness practice. And you can use props, you can have blankets and pillows and whatever accoutrements you'd like to include in your practice. Just nearby, something that feels comforting, whatever feels good in your body. And once you've gathered all those things, once you've made yourself comfortable, or as comfortable as possible, what I'd like you to do is just for a moment, begin to take stock of what's around you. So, starting from the inside, just start to notice what your breath is like. And the funny thing about noticing our breath is that oftentimes when we draw that attention to it, it automatically changes because we've drawn our attention to it. So imagine, and this is a story I am going to tell you to help you get into a place where you feel more connected. But imagine that there's nothing to worry about in this moment, that you are safe or as safe as possible, that you're comfortable, grounded, and right here in this room. Maybe look around. Take stock of some of the things in your space that make it feel like home or make it feel comfortable to you. And if you're in a space that doesn't necessarily work for comfort or security per se, you can always just gently soften your gaze and stare at the floor, fold your palms in your lap, or just keep your eyes open and begin to draw your awareness inward. And as you rest your awareness on your breath, just notice the rhythm that it follows, the gentle rise and fall. Notice if there's any story that you're telling yourself about the quality of your breath, the way it feels, the way it sounds, its temperature, how deeply you're breathing, or whether something around you in your space has drawn your attention. If you find you've been distracted, simply bring your mind back to your breath. And that sounds really complicated. The truth is, it can be. If we're in pain, if we're struggling or unhappy or in grief, it can be really hard to sense our breath. But for a few moments, what I'd like you to do is take a little bit of a wiggle, take a little bit of a movement pattern to get into that breath. So on your inhale, lift your shoulders up towards your ears and scrunch them as tight as you can. And on your exhale, roll your shoulder blades down and back. Inhale to draw your shoulders up towards your ears, scrunch them as much as you possibly can, and then roll them down your back. We'll do that one more time. Inhaling and drawing your shoulders up towards your ears, and then back down your back. And just for a moment, let your hands rest on your thighs or on your belly if you're seated or lying down. And just notice what that warmth feels like across the tops of your shoulders. Notice what the blood feels like pulsating there. Notice what your breath has done after taking those 3 little wiggly movements. And once you've taken those 3 little wiggly movements, go ahead and start to just rub your hands together very gently, creating a little warmth. So if you've ever been cold or come up to a fire after being outside in a brisk fall or winter night, you know that this little movement can bring warmth and sensation. And it's the transfer of energy between your hands that brings that warmth and sensation. And as you do that, see if you can find a natural rhythm, just something that makes sense to your body. Send your attention down into the touch of your hands against one another. Feel whether they sort of stick in places or slide. Feel the gentle undulations of the palms, the curves, the movement. And as you warm your hands ever so slightly, see if you can Let your fingertips touch and maybe reverse the direction of your hands. Can you notice the sensation of your right palm? Can you notice the sensation of your left palm? And once you've taken a few moments just to notice that sensation, what I'd like you to do is separate your hands and make a little ball, like you're going to make a snowball. And you can hold that at the center of your chest or lower it down towards your lap. And as you do that, see if you can still feel the warmth radiating from your palms. Maybe your fingertips touch the edge of your hand. Maybe they don't. But as you breathe, see if you can send that awareness down into the palms of your hands and just hold it there. And as you send your awareness down into the palms of your hands, notice the heat or the coolness, the temperature, the sensation that's there between your hands. And as you notice that sensation, notice whether or not there's some form of story that comes up. Oh, this is uncomfortable. Gosh, I'm bored. Man, I have an itch. I really want to move. Whatever comes up as you cradle this energy in your palms, allow it to come up. Just welcome it into the space with a loving awareness, a loving attention that invites it in instead of telling it to go away or telling it it's distracting or painful or uncomfortable. Invite it in. Ask it to pull up a chair, sit next to you for a moment. And as you notice that sense of warmth in your hands, what I'd like you to do next is offer yourself a moment to simply take that energy that's trapped in the palms of your hands and draw it towards your heart center. Open your hands towards your heart and allow it to sink in, maybe touching palms to your chest, feeling the warmth of your hands there, and noticing how the evenness of your breath rises and falls to meet that sensation beneath your palms. Notice how the skin beneath your hands or the shirt beneath your hands expands and contracts. With every living, breathing breath, and see once again if you can feel the sense of what it feels like to contact your heart with your right palm. Notice what it feels like to contact your heart with your left palm. And notice what the skin beneath your hands feels like as it lifts up to meet your palms. The atoms mingling, interacting, meshing with one another. Notice how the sensation may blur. The definition between your hands and your heart may blur, may soften, may change. And as you offer this loving motion, notice what comes up. What layer of story are you telling yourself about this moment? What story are you telling your heart through your hands? What story are your hands telling to your heart? Welcome that story, whatever it is. There is no judgment here. There's no good, there is no bad. There is just sensation in this moment. Take a few more breaths, just allowing that sensation to settle down into your system. And then gently, and when you're ready, slowly lower your hands back down to your legs and just let them rest on your thighs or in your lap. And feel free here to make whatever kind of adjustments you may need to your position. If you've been sitting for a moment, you may feel like you want to rock or wiggle or move. The thing about mindfulness, at least in my own experience of it, is that it's very much more about moving away from what we think we should do, the stories we tell ourselves about the limits of our abilities, the limits of our thought, and much more about feeling into the space that we occupy, feeling into the places that sometimes are dark and scary, sometimes don't feel so good in our bodies. It means taking the judgment and taking the should out of things. To practice mindfulness, you don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to have a certain physicality, a certain shape, a certain color of skin, make a certain amount of money. Something that is within all of us in the story that we tell ourselves, in how that we connect, how we can connect to ourselves in a moment. I'd like you to come down, if you can, if it's comfortable for you, onto your back on the floor or on a bed. And for me, I'm going to use a blanket just because I happen to be in my yoga space and this is where I'm practicing today. But I'm going to take a blanket and just place it underneath my head at the top of the mat. And once that's there, scoot your hips forward and you can just rest back. And one of the things I really like to do to make myself comfortable when I'm lying on my back is actually just slightly roll the blanket so that it lifts my neck just a bit. And I often have to kind of move my ponytail out of the way. And then for me, I like to keep my hands kind of on my rib cage. So almost like I'm drawing my ribs in, but it just feels supportive and safe. And if there's a specific place on your body where you like to place your hands to make you feel safe, do that. And then for a moment, just walk your feet in towards your hips and maybe close your eyes and feel into whatever movement you may want. So for me, that looks like just shifting my knees left to right really slightly, allowing gravity to draw down on one side and then down on the other. And just softening my breath, allowing the rhythm of my movement to determine the rhythm of my breath. And once you've settled into a rhythm, maybe play with your hand position. For me, I'm feeling a little expansive, so I'm going to reach my arms up overhead and just kind of take a diamond shape with them and maybe wiggle my shoulders down so that the full backs of my shoulder blades are contacting the floor or the blanket. And then I like to interlace my fingers. And I'm continuing to just rock left to right, ever so gently. And if this feels good, if you want to continue to just rock, feel free to. There's something very comforting and soothing, but also connecting about moving in this way. And if you choose not to move, that's totally okay too. One way I like to stay still is walk my feet wide, let my knees come together at the middle of the mat, and just come into what I usually call constructive rest. releases the belly, low back. And if that feels good, or if you'd like to shift, you can always take both legs out long. There's plenty of options here. This is your practice, and I'm not here to tell you how you should do it. What I am here to do is give you a little guidance, sort of like a guide on a river, offering you options as we move through this mindfulness practice. And notice if as you rock or as you stay still, if there's stories that come up. Stories like, ugh, when is this woman going to stop talking? Or stories like, man, this hurts. This is uncomfortable. I have an itch. Welcome those stories in. And if you have an itch, itch your itch. If you're uncomfortable and can be more comfortable, adjust to make that change. But as you either take movement or stillness, I'd like you to just gently close your eyes and see if you can soften something from the inside. So for me, I'm feeling tension in my left shoulder, just beneath my shoulder blade. And on my next exhale, I'm going to send just a little love to that shoulder and let it soften down. And as I feel that shoulder release and relax, I notice there's a little bit of tension in my right shoulder. And so I'm just going to request softly from the inside, just a little let go of that story of tension, a little bit of letting go of that story that colors our world, both good and bad. And then as I rest and as I rock left to right ever so slowly, I'm going to send my awareness back into the palms of my hands once again, noticing that warmth, that heat, that pulse, and recalling that sensation of heat that we generated at the beginning of this short mindfulness practice. See if you can create that sensation in the palms of your hands without any physical movement. Without rubbing your palms together, see if you can feel that warmth, that rhythm. Perhaps even your heartbeat. Notice that where your energy flows, warmth can be generated. Where your awareness flows, heat, sensation, softness, and compassion can be generated. And then as you imagine the warmth in the palm of your hands, wherever they may be lying, imagine that you're kind of like Iron Man with those laser beams in his palms. And take that warmth and draw those hands down and let them rest, one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. Doesn't matter which. And as you make contact with yourself, imagine gently pressing that warmth, that energy, and that light into your belly and into your heart. See if when you do that, you can just soften and relax more. Imagine the warmth from your hands penetrating down into your skin, through your layers of muscle, and down into your bones. See if you can relax and release any tension or any soreness, any tension or any soreness that comes up and rises to meet the warmth and compassion and love of your hands. Instead of telling yourself a story about how you can't meditate or you can't be mindful or you can't connect to your body, observe those places where your hands meet your body, where your breath flows in and out. And then take a few more moments here, just either rocking like I am or lying still, investigating any stories as they arise, as they come into your awareness. Be curious about them. Investigate why they may have arisen. And ask them if they have any wisdom to share with you in this moment, whether it's a change in the way you're moving, change in position, an adjustment, or just a little bit more compassion. And once you've taken a few moments to just inquire what stories you have to tell yourself, come back to stillness. Notice the rise and fall of your belly and your chest. And see if you can soften a little bit more down into the support beneath your skin. Slowly begin to deepen your breath. Allowing it to fill you up completely and empty out totally. And on your next inhale, go ahead and stretch your arms up overhead. Maybe stretch your feet out long. Take a nice deep breath. Maybe take a little yawn or a stretch. Move however your body wants to move in this moment. And then on your exhale, just slowly, gently roll over to your left or right side. And pause on the floor for a moment. If you're in a place where you can simply relax into this sensation, feel free to do so. There's no need to go anywhere or do anything. But if you'd like, roll your shoulders more towards the earth and press down to sit up and find an easy seat, whether that's seated back on your cushion or blanket or just sitting up in bed. And for a moment, if you're seated, just Take one complete rotation with your torso so that you can feel all the little aspects of your pelvis sink down onto the mat. Come back to center, and with your eyes closed, lift the back of your head as if there's a string there that's being tugged up. Maybe tuck your chin slightly. There's the contact of your body with the earth. Feel the earth rise up to meet you. And for a moment, notice whether or not the stories that you began with have quieted. They're probably still there, and that's perfectly okay. They should be. But maybe they have a little bit less hold on you. Maybe you can feel the sensation of your hands against your legs or resting in your lap. Maybe feel the sensation of your pelvis on the floor. And maybe just return to that sense of warmth in your palms. Gently take your hands to heart center and rest your palms lightly against one another. Feel your sternum lift up into your thumbs as your thumbs gently rest down against your sternum. I'm so grateful to be able to share just a little glimpse of what mindfulness looks like for me. And I'm so glad that you've decided to join me for mindfulness for normal people. All of the love and light in me bows to and honors all of the love and light in each one of you. Namaste.